Commander Hyunwoo stepped onto the bridge of Station Kepler-7, his boots echoing against the polished metal floor. The massive viewing screen dominated the entire wall, showing the endless darkness of space dotted with distant stars. But today, something else caught his attention. A small human transport ship spinning slowly in the void, its engines dead and hull scarred with burn marks. "Sir, the vessel entered our protected sector without clearance," reported Lieutenant Su Jin, her tentacles rippling with irritation as she manipulated the control panel. The Caraxian officer had served under Hyunwoo for 3 years, and her patience with human violations had worn thin. They ignored 17 separate hailing attempts, and their cargo bay is showing traces of banned quantum resonators. Hyunwoo studied the drifting ship through narrowed eyes. The vessel looked like a typical human trader, battered, patched with mismatched hull plates, and bearing the wear marks of countless hyperspace jumps. But something felt different about this. One, the damage patterns were too precise, too clean, almost as if the ship had been deliberately disabled rather than suffering mechanical failure. "Deploy the tractor beam," he ordered. "Bring them in through docking bay 7. The massive station's mechanical arms extended like metallic tentacles, grasping the human ship and drawing it slowly into the pressurized hangar. Warning lights flashed red as atmospheric processors kicked in, equalizing pressure and temperature for the incoming vessel. Hyunwoo made his way to the detention center, where security drones had already escorted the ship's pilot. The corridor was lined with cells containing various alien species. A blue-skinned Arcturian caught smuggling rare crystals, 2 insectoid Threx pirates, and now a human. The woman sat calmly on the metal bench, her dark hair falling across her shoulders. Her clothes were simple, the standard grey jumpsuit of a civilian trader, with worn patches and utility belts common among space merchants. But her posture was wrong. Most captured smugglers cowered or paced nervously. This woman sat with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to authority. "Another reckless human," Sujin muttered as they approached the cell. Her tentacles coiled and uncoiled with agitation. "In the past 6 months, we've processed 47 human violations. They treat our space lanes like their personal highways." Hyunwoo nodded grimly. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Human ships appeared in restricted zones with increasing frequency, their crews offering wild explanations about navigation errors and equipment failures. Some claimed they were fleeing pirates, others insisted they were following distress signals. But the law was clear. Unauthorized entry meant imprisonment regardless of circumstances. The tribunal chamber was a circular room with tiered seating for various alien species. Holographic displays showed the evidence, sensor readings of the ship's entry into protected space, recordings of ignored communication attempts, and detailed scans of the prohibited technology hidden in the cargo hold. Security guards flanked the human woman as she stood before the judicial panel. She was younger than Hyunwoo had initially thought, perhaps in her late 20s by human standards. Her name was Ji-Yoon Park, according to the identification documents found on her ship. "You stand accused of 3 violations of galactic maritime law," Hyunwoo announced, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustic system. "Unauthorized entry into Sector Gamma 7, failure to respond to official communications, and possession of restricted quantum technology. These are serious crimes that threaten the safety and security of all galactic citizens." Ji-Eun's dark eyes met his without wavering. "I understand the charges, Commander. How do you plead?" "I was following emergency protocols," she replied, her voice steady and clear. "My ship's navigation system suffered a cascade failure during hyperspace transition. The quantum resonators were emergency backup systems, activated automatically when my primary engines failed." Hyunwoo had heard dozens of similar stories. Every human trader seemed to have a perfectly reasonable explanation for their violations. Equipment failures, navigation errors, emergency situations. The excuses varied, but the outcome was always the same. Restricted space had been compromised, and the law demanded consequences. "The evidence shows your ship entered protected space. At normal velocity," he countered. "Hyperspace emergencies typically result in violent deceleration and debris fields. Your vessel shows signs of controlled entry." "The backup systems engaged properly," Ji-Yoon insisted. I had no choice but to enter the nearest safe sector. Sujin leaned forward, her tentacles writhing with skepticism. Convenient that every human emergency seems to occur near our most sensitive military installations. The other tribunal members, a crystalline Valdorian and a hulking Ursine delegate, murmured agreement. The pattern of human violations had not gone unnoticed by the greater galactic community. Hyunwoo studied the woman's face, searching for signs of deception. But Ji-eun maintained her calm demeanor, neither pleading desperately nor showing the arrogance he'd come to expect from human smugglers. The penalty for these combined violations is 5 standard years of rehabilitative labor, he announced. You will be transported to the Titan mining colonies, where you will serve your sentence while contributing to galactic society. For the first time, Ji-eun's composure cracked slightly. A flash of something, disappointment, urgency, has crossed her features before the mask of calm returned. I understand, she said simply. As the guards led her away, Hyunwoo couldn't shake the feeling that this case was different. But the law was clear, and he had sworn to uphold it regardless of his personal doubts. Commander Hyunwoo sat in his private quarters aboard Station Kepler-7, reviewing the daily reports on his holographic display. The soft blue glow illuminated his face as he scrolled through routine maintenance logs, patrol schedules, and prisoner transport confirmations. 3 days had passed since he sentenced the human woman to the mining colonies, and the case had settled into the back of his mind like dozens of others before it. The quantum communicator on his desk suddenly flared to life, casting brilliant, white light across the room. This wasn't the usual green glow of standard communications. The device projected a massive holographic seal that rotated slowly in the air, the official emblem of the Galactic Council itself. Golden symbols from 100 different worlds spiraled around a central star, pulsing with energy that indicated maximum security clearance. Hyunwoo straightened in his chair, his heart racing. In 15 years of service, he had never received a direct communication from Council headquarters. The seal expanded, revealing classification codes that made his blood run cold. This was beyond top secret. This was the kind of message that could start or end wars. A synthetic voice began speaking, each word carrying the weight of absolute authority. Commander Hyunwoo of Station Kepler-7, Galactic Enforcement Division. Priority Alpha clearance required. Message authenticated through quantum encryption protocols 7 through 12. The hologram shifted, displaying official documents that scrolled past too quickly for him to read in detail, but certain phrases caught his attention. Special. Operations Division. Classified deep space mission. And most shocking of all, diplomatic immunity status. You are hereby informed that human designation Ji-eun Park, currently serving sentence under case number GK7749, holds the official rank of Special Envoy to the Galactic Council. She was conducting a classified operation under direct authorization from the Human Colonial Authority and the Deep Space Reconnaissance Division. Hyunwoo's mandibles clicked involuntarily, a sign of extreme stress among his species. The woman he had sentenced was not just innocent, she was one of the most important people in human space. All charges are to be dismissed immediately. Agent Park's mission status is classified beyond your current clearance level. You will facilitate her immediate release and provide full cooperation with her ongoing operation. Any delays or breaches of security will be considered acts against the Galactic Council itself. The message continued with technical details about security protocols and contact procedures, but Hyunwoo barely heard them. His mind raced back to the tribunal 3 days ago. Ji-eun's calm demeanor, her lack of surprise at the sentence, the way she had accepted her fate without argument. It all made sense now. She had been protecting her mission even while facing 5 years of hard labor. The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving the room in sudden darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting red shadows across the walls. Hyunwoo sat in stunned silence for several minutes, trying to process what he had just learned. His door chimed and he called for entry. Lieutenant Minho stepped inside, his young face showing concern. The junior officer had served under Hyunwoo for 2 years and had developed an almost supernatural ability to sense when something was wrong. "Sir?" The quantum communicator registered a council-level transmission. Is everything all right? Hyun-woo turned to face his aide, struggling to find the right words. Min-ho, that human prisoner we sent to Titan Colony 3 days ago? The trader? Ji-un Park? She's not a trader. Hyun-woo's voice came out as barely a whisper. She's a special envoy to the Galactic Council. I just sentenced one of the most important humans in the galaxy to 5 years of mining asteroids. Min-ho's eyes widened to almost comical proportions. His species, the Zentorians, were known for their expressive features, and shock registered across his entire face. But, sir, her identification documents, her ship's registration, everything checked out as civilian merchant class. Cover identity, Hyun-woo realized aloud. She was on some kind of classified mission. The kind of mission that requires counsel, approval, and diplomatic immunity. The implications began hitting him like physical blows. If Ji-un Park was working for the Council, then her presence in restricted space wasn't a violation. It was authorized. The quantum resonators weren't smuggled goods. They were specialized equipment for whatever operation she was conducting. Even her ship's convenient breakdown in their sector was probably planned. What kind of mission requires that level of secrecy? Min-ho asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Hyun-woo stood and began pacing, his mind working through the possibilities. Something big enough that they couldn't risk normal diplomatic channels, something that required a deep cover operative to enter restricted space without raising suspicions. But why didn't she identify herself during the trial? She could have avoided the sentence entirely. Because, Hyun-woo said, the pieces finally clicking together, revealing her identity would have compromised whatever she's really doing out there. She was willing to accept 5 years of hard labor to protect her mission. The thought made him feel sick. What kind of threat was so serious that a council envoy would sacrifice 5 years of her life rather than risk exposing it? What was happening in the outer sectors that required this level of secrecy and sacrifice? Min-ho activated his personal communicator, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Sir, I'm checking the prisoner transport logs. The ship carrying Envoy Park should reach Titan Colony in approximately 18 hours. Get me a secure channel to the mining facility immediately, Hyun-woo ordered, his voice regaining its commanding tone. And prepare my personal cruiser for immediate departure. If we're dealing with something that requires council-level secrecy, then we need to get her back before whatever she's investigating gets worse. As Min-ho rushed to carry out the orders, Hyun-woo stared out at the stars through his viewport. Somewhere out there, a threat existed that was serious enough to risk the life of a council envoy, and he had just sent humanity's best hope for dealing with it to break rocks on a mining asteroid. The weight of his mistake pressed down on him, like the gravity of a collapsing star. The journey to Titan Colony took 12 hours through hyperspace, giving Hyun-woo plenty of time to worry about what he might find. His personal cruiser, the Stellar Judgment, cut through the void at maximum speed while he paced the small bridge like a caged animal. Min-ho sat at the navigation console, monitoring their approach to the massive mining operation that floated in the asteroid belt. Titan Colony wasn't really a colony at all. It was a floating city of metal and glass, built around the largest asteroid in the system. Thousands of prisoners from across the galaxy worked in its crystal extraction chambers, mining the rare quantum crystals that powered faster-than-light communication systems. The facility was a maze of tunnels, processing plants and living quarters that stretched deep into the asteroid's core. Sir, we're receiving docking clearance from Colony Control, Min-ho reported. Bay 7 is open for your arrival. Hyun-woo nodded grimly. Any word on Prisoner Park's current status? According to the work assignments, she's been placed in Extraction Chamber 12. The supervisor notes that she's been unusually cooperative. The docking procedure was smooth, but Hyun-woo's nerves were anything but calm. As they walked through the colony's corridors, he noticed the mix of species working together. Blue-skinned Arcturians operating heavy machinery, insectoid Mantari sorting crystals with their precise manipulator arms, and various humanoid species, handling the more delicate extraction work. Warden Kyung-min met them near the entrance to the extraction levels. The grizzled human administrator had run Titan Colony for 8 years, and his weathered face showed the strain of managing thousands of prisoners from dozens of different worlds. "Commander, this is highly irregular," Kyung-min said, his voice echoing in the metal corridor. "We don't usually get personal visits from station commanders, especially not for routine prisoners." "This case is far from routine," Hyunwoo replied. "I need to speak with Ji-eun Park immediately. The human trader. She's been a model prisoner so far. Keeps to herself, works hard, doesn't cause trouble. Though I have to say she seems different from the usual smugglers we get." They descended deeper into the asteroid through a series of lifts and walkways. The air grew thicker and more humid as they approached the crystal chambers, where the heat from the extraction processes created a tropical environment. The sound of machinery grew louder, drilling equipment, conveyor systems, and the constant hum of power generators that kept the entire facility running. Extraction Chamber 12 was a vast cavern carved out of the asteroid's interior, its walls glittering with veins of blue and purple crystals. Dozens of prisoners worked at different stations, some operating heavy drilling equipment, while others carefully extracted the delicate quantum crystals by hand. The work was dangerous. One wrong move could shatter crystals worth more than most. Planet's annual budgets. Hyunwoo spotted Ji-eun immediately. She was working at a precision extraction station, using delicate tools to remove crystals from a particularly complex formation. But what caught his attention wasn't her technique. It was how she was quietly helping other prisoners with their quotas. An elderly Valdorian struggling with heavy equipment found his load mysteriously lighter. A young Threx having trouble with the extraction tools discovered someone had adjusted his equipment for optimal efficiency. "She's been doing that since she arrived," Warden Kyung-min observed. "Helping others, sharing her food rations, even mediating disputes between different species. It's like she's trying to improve conditions for everyone around her." Hyunwoo approached her workstation carefully. Ji-eun looked up as his shadow fell across her work area, sweat beading on her forehead from the chamber's heat. Her prison uniform was stained with crystal dust, and her hands showed the calluses that came from 3 days of hard labor. But her eyes were as steady and intelligent as they had been in the tribunal chamber. "Envoy Park," he said quietly, using her real title for the first time. Ji-eun paused in her work, a small smile crossing her face. "Commander, I wondered when you'd figure it out." She continued working as she spoke, her hands never stopping their precise movements. Around them, other prisoners continued their tasks, unaware that they were witnessing a conversation that could determine the fate of the galaxy. "Your mission," Hyunwoo said, keeping his voice low. "What were you really doing in that restricted sector?" Ji-eun glanced around carefully, making sure their conversation wouldn't be overheard. The nearest prisoners were focused on their own work, and the sound of machinery provided natural cover for their words. "First contact protocols," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. 3 weeks ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected something unprecedented. A massive fleet of ships emerged from the void beyond the galactic rim, ships unlike anything in our databases. Hyunwoo felt his pulse quicken. "A new species? They call themselves the Vorthak," Ji-eun continued, her extraction work never pausing. "Our xenobiologists estimate they're silicon-based life forms, possibly evolved from living crystal formations. They're aggressive, highly territorial, and they don't respond to any standard diplomatic channels. The restricted technology in your cargo hold, experimental translation matrix," she confirmed. "It took our best linguists and quantum engineers 2 years to develop. It's the only device we've found that can interpret their communication patterns. The Vorthak don't use sound or electromagnetic signals like most species. They communicate through quantum resonance frequencies." The implications hit Hyunwoo like a physical blow. "How many ships are we talking about?" Ji-eun's hands stilled for a moment, and when she looked up at him, her eyes held a fear he had never seen before. "Conservative estimates suggest their fleet is 3 times larger than the combined naval forces of the Galactic Council. Their ships are massive, some are the size of small moons. And Commander, they're not explorers or traders." "What do you mean?" "Every system they've encountered so far has been stripped clean, planets mined to their cores, space stations dismantled, entire civilizations absorbed into their collective. The Vorthak don't just conquer territory, they consume it." Hyunwoo felt his confidence crumble like a house built on sand. He had potentially derailed humanity's first and possibly only chance at preventing a galactic war. Worse than that, he might have doomed entire civilizations to extinction. Where are they now? He asked, dreading the answer. Moving through the outer rim territories, heading toward populated space. Ji-eun resumed her crystal extraction, but her movements were tenser now. At their current rate of advance, they'll reach the first colony worlds within 6 months. If we can't establish communication, if we can't find some way to negotiate or understand what they want. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Hyunwoo could see the end of everything he had sworn to protect. Not just his sector, not just his species, but every living being in the galaxy. The emergency release procedures at Titan Colony moved with military precision. Within 2 hours of Hyunwoo's arrival, Ji-eun had been processed out of the prison system, her mining uniform replaced with a diplomatic envoy's formal attire. The transformation was remarkable. Gone was the humble prisoner, replaced by a woman who carried herself with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to shaping the fate of worlds. Hyunwoo's cruiser raced through hyperspace toward the Galactic Council headquarters on Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the political heart of the galaxy. During the journey, Ji-eun used the ship's communication array to contact human colonial authorities, speaking in rapid, coded language that Hyunwoo couldn't follow. The urgency in her voice made it clear that time was running out. "How bad is it really?" he asked during a quiet moment between her encrypted calls. Ji-eun looked up from the communication console, her face drawn with exhaustion. 3 colonies have gone dark in the past week. Kepler 9, New Arcturus, and the mining station at Vega 7. That's over 2 million people, Commander. The numbers hit him like a physical blow. 2 million lives lost while he had been processing routine patrol reports and administrative paperwork. The weight of his mistake in imprisoning her grew heavier with each passing moment. Nexus Prime appeared ahead of them like a mechanical planet, its countless docking bays and communication arrays bristling with activity. Ships from across the galaxy converged on the station. Military vessels, diplomatic transports, and emergency response craft all arriving for what everyone knew might be the most important council session in recorded history. The council chamber was a massive spherical room designed to accommodate representatives from hundreds of different species. Floating platforms arranged in concentric circles allowed delegates to participate regardless of their environmental needs. Aquatic species floated in water-filled containers. Crystalline beings positioned themselves near energy sources, and atmospheric breathers of all kinds found their designated spaces. Chancellor Dae-hyun of the Altarian Republic called the session to order, his 6 arms gesturing dramatically as he spoke. The Altarians were known for their diplomatic skills, but even Dae-hyun's usual composure showed cracks of stress. "Fellow beings of the Galactic Council," his voice resonated through the chamber's translation systems, "we face an unprecedented threat. The entity known as the Vorthak has destroyed 3 of our outer colonies. Initial military responses have failed completely. Holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber, showing the devastation left behind by the Vorthak fleet. Where thriving colonies had once existed, only empty space remained. Not even debris fields marked their passing. Everything had been consumed, processed, and absorbed into the alien fleet. Our combined naval forces have engaged the enemy twice," continued Admiral Sung-ho of the Terran Defense Fleet. "Both encounters resulted in total losses. The Vorthak ships seem to be constructed from some kind of living crystal that adapts to our weapons. They learn from each attack and become stronger." Worried murmurs rippled through the assembly. Representatives from warrior species like the Ursine Confederacy and the Mantari hives shifted restlessly, their natural instincts frustrated by an enemy that couldn't be fought conventionally. Councillor Yuna of the Zelvan Empire stood on her platform, her serpentine form coiled with tension. "Perhaps it's time to consider evacuation protocols for the Rim worlds. We could establish defensive lines at the galactic core and abandon the outer territories." "Abandon 40 billion people," Chancellor Dae-hyun's voice cracked with disbelief. "The Zelvan Empire has grown comfortable with sacrificing others for their own safety. Better some survive than all perish, Yuna replied coldly. That's when Ji-Yun stepped forward. Her platform rose from the human delegation section, and the chamber fell silent. Most of the delegates had never seen a human before, and her small stature compared to the massive alien representatives made her seem insignificant. But her voice carried clearly through the translation systems. With respect, Chancellor, you haven't tried the human approach. Councillor Yun-A's laugh was a harsh, hissing sound. And what approach is that, little human? Reckless aggression? We've seen how your species handles conflicts. Ji-Un remained calm in the face of the insult. Patience and understanding that sometimes established protocols need to be broken. She activated her personal holographic display, showing the experimental translation device she had been carrying. The crystalline matrix rotated slowly, its quantum resonance patterns visible as waves of light. The Vorthak don't communicate. Like we do, she explained. They don't use words or images or mathematical concepts. They communicate through quantum harmonics, patterns of energy that resonate through their crystalline nervous systems. Every attempt at contact has failed because we've been trying to talk to them in languages they literally cannot comprehend. Admiral Zhang Ho leaned forward. You're suggesting we can actually communicate with these creatures? More than that, Ji-Yun replied. I believe they've been trying to communicate with us this entire time. What we've interpreted as attacks might actually be their attempts at making contact. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages, while translation systems struggled to keep up. Some delegates accused Ji-Yun of being naive, while others demanded to know why this information hadn't been shared sooner. Chancellor Dae-hyun restored order with effort. Hyunvoy Park, you're asking us to risk everything on an untested theory. I'm asking you to try something different before we write off billions of lives, Ji-Yun shot back. My plan is simple. Instead of meeting the Vorthak with massive battle fleets, we send small unarmed ships equipped with the translation matrix, single vessels that pose no threat and can focus entirely on establishing communication. Impossible, growled General Quan Ho of the Ursine military. No warrior sends unarmed ships against an enemy fleet. It violates every principle of tactical doctrine, every principle that has failed so far, Jin-Yun replied firmly. The Vorthak are silicon-based life forms. Their entire existence is based on harmony and resonance. Large military formations might trigger their defensive responses because they interpret massed fleets as threats to their collective harmony. Councillor Yuna's serpentine form uncoiled with skepticism. You're asking us to trust human intuition over millennia of proven military strategy. Ji-Yun's gaze found Hyun-woo in the observer section, and for a moment their eyes met. He saw in her expression the same quiet determination she had shown during her trial, the same willingness to sacrifice herself for a greater cause. I'm asking you to trust that humans understand what it's like to be misunderstood, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. We know what it feels like to be judged by appearances, to have our intentions misinterpreted, to be condemned without a fair hearing. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate understood the weight of her words, the deeper meaning behind her proposal. This wasn't just about military strategy. It was about giving an alien species the same chance for understanding that every being in the council chamber hoped for when they were misunderstood. Chancellor Dae-hyun spoke into the silence. The risks are enormous. If you're wrong, we lose valuable time and resources. If I'm right, Ji-Yun replied, we save the galaxy. The fleet of small human vessels approached the Vorthak armada like tiny sparks drifting toward a constellation of crystalline suns. From the bridge of the command ship, Harmony's voice. Ji-Un watched the massive alien vessels grow larger on the view screen. Each Vorthak ship was a work of art, towering spires of living crystal that pulsed with internal light, their surfaces shifting and flowing like frozen music. Captain In-Soo, the ship's commander, wiped nervous sweat from his brow. Sanvoy, we're detecting massive energy buildups across their fleet. If they decide to fire, they won't, Ji-Un said with more confidence than she felt. Remember, we're not here as conquerors or judges. We're here as neighbors introducing ourselves. The translation matrix hummed to life in the center of the bridge, its crystalline structure resonating with harmonics that made the ship's hull vibrate. The device had been modified with quantum resonators salvaged from Ji-un's original ship, creating a communication array unlike anything ever built. Suddenly, the Vorthak fleet's movement patterns changed. Instead of the aggressive formations that had terrified military analysts, the crystal ships began arranging themselves in complex geometric patterns, spirals within spirals, fractals of light and energy that seemed to pulse with meaning. "It's working," whispered Dr. Hyjin, the mission's xenolinguist. "The translation matrix is picking up their quantum signatures. They're trying to talk to us." The first successful translation came through as waves of emotion rather than words, exhaustion, desperation, fear mixed with hope. The Vorthak weren't announcing conquest, they were pleading for help. Over the following hours, as the translation matrix refined its understanding, a story began to emerge that changed everything. The Vorthak weren't conquerors at all. They were refugees fleeing the death of their home system, where their parent star had begun collapsing into a black hole. Entire worlds of crystalline beings had been evacuated in a desperate exodus that had lasted generations. The destruction of the outer colonies hadn't been attacks, they had been frantic attempts at communication. The Vorthak had been trying to demonstrate their technological capabilities, showing that they could contribute to galactic society. In their culture, displays of strength were how refugees proved they wouldn't be a burden on their hosts. "They've been trying to ask for sanctuary," Ji-un explained during an emergency transmission to the Galactic Council. "Every attack was actually a greeting ceremony. They were showing us their abilities, trying to prove they could be valuable allies." The breakthrough came when the translation matrix finally decoded their fundamental message. "We are the last of our kind. We seek harmony with the song of new worlds. Will you teach us your music?" What followed was the most complex diplomatic negotiation in galactic history. The Vorthak were organized into family clans of thousands of individuals, each one a living crystal capable of incredible technological feats. They offered to share their knowledge of quantum engineering and crystalline computing in exchange for habitable space in the galaxy's unused systems. The integration process took months, but slowly Vorthak engineering teams began working alongside Council scientists. Their ships, once seen as instruments of destruction, became mobile construction platforms that could build entire space stations in weeks. Their mastery of crystal technology revolutionized galactic communications and energy production. The peace celebration on New Geneva was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The massive space station had been transformed into a carnival of species and cultures, with representatives from hundreds of worlds mingling freely. Vorthak crystal formations created living sculptures that sang with harmonic frequencies, while human musicians learned to incorporate the alien melodies into their compositions. Hyunwoo walked through the celebration feeling both amazed and humbled. Everywhere he looked, he saw the impossible becoming routine. Vorthak younglings playing quantum games with human children, their crystalline bodies shifting colors as they laughed. Alien species that had never met before were sharing food, music, and stories. He found Ji-un standing near a viewing port, watching a group of young beings from different species playing together in the station's central garden. A small Vorthak child, barely the size of a human toddler but already showing the complex crystal formations of its species, was teaching a human girl how to make patterns in the air using quantum resonance. "Amazing, isn't it?" Ji-un said, without turning around. 3 months ago, we thought they were going to destroy the galaxy. Now look at them." "I owe you an apology," Hyunwoo said, his voice heavy with regret. "I judged you without understanding the full situation. I nearly prevented the most important diplomatic breakthrough in galactic history, because I couldn't see past my own assumptions." Ji-un turned to face him, her smile warm and genuine. "That's what makes us human, Commander. We make mistakes, but we learn from them. And sometimes the best solutions come from breaking the rules everyone else is afraid to challenge." People have a saying, don't they, about not judging a book by its cover? Something like that, Ji-un laughed. "Though I think the Vorthak version is more poetic. The crystal song cannot be heard until the harmony is complete." She extended her hand to him. Friends? Hyunwoo clasped her hand firmly, feeling the weight of everything they had been through together. Friends, and perhaps allies in ensuring this never happens again. The galaxy needs more people who are willing to see beyond first impressions. As the celebration continued around them, Hyunwoo realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their military prowess or even their diplomatic skills. It was their ability to see past surface judgments and find common ground with anyone, even those who had wronged them, even those who seemed like enemies. The Vorthak children's laughter echoed through the station, mixing with the sounds of 100 different species celebrating together. The galaxy was safer now, not because any threat had been defeated, but because understanding had triumphed over fear. In the end, it wasn't weapons or walls that protected civilization. It was the courage to listen, to question assumptions, and to offer trust even when it seemed impossible. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, and perhaps their greatest achievement. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter as the celebration continued, illuminating a future where difference was celebrated rather than feared, where understanding was valued more than judgment, and where the song of countless species could finally harmonize into something beautiful. The end.